Hey guys, my name is Sophie Jo and I am the Crunchy Country Mama, and I wanted to make this video today to start my YouTube channel. I am really excited about this. This is something I've wanted to do for a while, and to come to you today to share more about my journey to choose to become a stay-at-home mom. So I'm going to share with you 3 things that helped me decide to be a stay-at-home mom. I hope that it helps you. If that is something you're looking forward to hearing, then keep watching. Okay, so let's dive into it. I became a stay-at-home mom 3.5 years ago, a little over almost 4 years ago. And it was a decision that wasn't exactly easy. It's interesting, it was easy and it wasn't. And I'm gonna kind of explain to you what I mean by that. You probably, if you're watching this as somebody who's thinking about being a stay-at-home mom, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But I wanna kind of come to the end point here of why or how I made that choice. And there's 3 things. So the first thing is that I already knew the answer. And if you're watching this, you may already know the answer as well. There's something innately inside of me that wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And even though I didn't know what to expect, my situation is that I was married before I went back to school for my second bachelor's degree to become a teacher. And because we were married and we decided we wanted to start a family, we actually started our family in the middle of my schooling. And I have a whole nother story that goes along with that because I experienced infertility, and I'd like to share that with anybody who's watching here as well in a later video that kind of explains that journey as well. But nonetheless, we did get pregnant, and I had our daughter the semester before my full student teaching term. And I ended up having to go back to work, which work was unpaid. In fact, I was paying to go back to school as a student teacher 6 weeks after she was born. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And anybody out there who's a mom who's had to go back to work too soon, and too soon can be defined by you. 6 weeks was too soon for me. Knows exactly how that feels. But I did it because, you guys, I loved teaching. I loved my daughter and I loved teaching, and I felt so pulled between those 2 things. And I knew that if I didn't do it, I would regret it. If I didn't finish, if I didn't graduate, I would regret it. So I did. I went back at 6 weeks. I would wake up at 5 a.m. so that I could pump and feed her and drive the hour drive to my student teaching. It wasn't easy. And I think that experience really formed for me what I wanted. And it's hard to want 2 things that don't seem to really mesh well together. But I finished. I graduated. I think she was 3 months old when I graduated. And then I was left with a choice. And that choice was to hold off on going back to work and try being a stay-at-home mom right away without ever knowing how I felt about teaching and having my own classroom, or to find a job and work and see how it went. And I chose the latter. So I found a job, and it was a great job. I made some amazing friends. I found an amazing mentor, and I went in to work and loved it and hated it all at the same time. I can't say that I hated anything about the teaching, but I hated being away from my daughter even more because, and it may depend on the type of job that you have, but for me, as a teacher, especially as a first-year teacher, when you're still creating all of your course content, it was extremely demanding. And I got to a point where I am unwilling when I work. I give nothing less than my full effort. And it got to a point where I was giving more effort to my job and more effort to my job to where I felt like I was giving nothing to my daughter. And it was at that point that I knew that this wasn't going to work long term. I knew already what my decision was going to be. And it just was about convincing my husband to feel the same way. Because what this was going to do, and I'm sure many of you watching are in a similar situation, me leaving my job was going to cut our income in exactly half. I started my first year teaching making the same amount of money as my husband was making, having been at his job for several years. So it was going to cut our income in half. And over the period of a few months, I would bring up the conversation and we would talk about it, and he wasn't so sure. I formulated plans to make sure that we knew exactly what it would require of us. We wouldn't be able to live in the home that we were currently living in, which honestly was okay because it was not where we wanted to be. And eventually we came to a decision together that we would try me being a stay-at-home mom. So I put in my notice and followed my gut. And I want to make it clear that it's making a decision like this is about 5% planning and 95% following your gut. If you don't make that first gut choice, which is the biggest part of it, then none of the planning matters. So yes, plan ahead. That gets you to 100. But if you can't just make a decision, if you can't write that letter of resignation, if you can't go in and talk to your boss, then what is it all for? The second thing is that we knew that we wanted to have more kids. And as you probably know, as somebody who has children, or maybe you want to have children, and as you probably know, daycare is not cheap. And adding 2, 3, 4, 5, however many kids we didn't know at the time, onto a daycare expense. Now, granted, eventually they would go into school, but the age my kids are, they all would have to be in daycare. There's 3 of them. All 3 would have to be in daycare. We knew that that expense alone was going to cut significantly at our income, and that I would be saving us a lot of money being a stay-at-home mom. So that really played a large role in our decision as well. The third thing that helped me decide to be a stay-at-home mom is that we were willing to downgrade our lifestyle. We sold our home that was a nice home in a nice neighborhood. And like I said, we cut our income in half by me quitting. And we were willing to even ask my parents for us to live with them for, I think it was a period of 6 or 8 weeks that we lived with them so that we could find a home that we wanted. And that home ended up being, really didn't feel like a downgrade. Expense-wise, it was a significant downgrade. This home is $60,000 less. This home cost us $60,000 less than our previous home. And we budgeted much more strictly. I was on a $50 a week budget for our family of 3 at the time, and I was pregnant again when we moved here. And we picked up odds and ends jobs like coaching soccer, and I actually did work part-time for the first 6 months or so that we moved back here. I worked part-time for my dad's animal hospital. I worked some online work for my dad and for my sister. And I also picked up a network marketing job. So we were doing several different things to make do so that we could get by until my husband gained more years at his job, more experience at his job, to the point now where we're a little bit more comfortable with our income. So that's it. Those are the 3 things that helped me decide to become a stay-at-home mom. 1, I pretty much already knew the answer. 2, we knew that we wanted to have more than 1 kid and that the expense of daycare would pile up, so I'd really be saving us money. And 3, we were willing to downgrade our house, our lifestyle, and pick up odd and end jobs to be able to make ends meet. I hope this helped you. I hope that you're able to have a discussion with your spouse, if that's the case, to really come to a decision of whether or not stay-at-home motherhood is for you. And if that is something you'd like to know more about, if you want a sneak peek into what being a stay-at-home mom is like, I will be making a video next week on that topic. So make sure you hit subscribe. Please give me a like if you enjoyed this video and share it with a friend. All right, guys, I'll see you next week.